No, we're gonna verbally keep time from the moderators here. But your opening statement is 2. Yeah. Some of the questions will be 90 seconds.
Just like put your points somewhere.
Some may be 30.
So this is real debate format. It's a real debate format with timing. I thought it was more.
We should close the lines.
I know, we could ask. It's very glaring. Please bring it down halfway. Just that one is so glaring. I was thinking of putting my
Oh yeah.
friendly.
This has come up before. Yeah, no. This happens on open mic.
Just halfway will even do it. Just the sky part.
So it's a good article. Put it in the Parley issue.
Yeah, that's good. That's fine. Stop being so glaring.
Amazing. Push play.
It's a nice view from the sunset.
It's very nice.
There's got to be a clock in this room.
It's just when you drive around the corner at night, you see it. They did a very nice job integrating the old with the new.
I know what those hooks are for up there. You're right on the wall.
I have when I
You know, moderate, you know.
Only on this side.
Lots of things going on. I don't know how to film something without a huge memory. Interested in Tracy May Calvadas and
evening. Hello. Hi, I am Corinne Chronopoulos. I'm the library director here at Peterborough Town Library. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for attending. And thank you to Go Manana, Zoe, and Chris for hosting this evening. This is the 5th time we've done a parlay. So they're quite experienced and they've prepared all the questions tonight and they will be our host. But before we begin, unfortunately, it does not go without saying that we need to talk about civility. So similar to what Phil Runyon says at town meeting, I just want to remind everybody to act in a civil manner during this debate. And if you feel that you cannot, step outside and come back when you're ready to be quiet and respectful. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you, Corinne, and welcome everybody to, as she said, the 5th now Peterborough Parley, Debate, and Salon. We have tonight a sort of rare scenario where we have a wide open select board seat. And vying to fill that seat, we have Bonnie Tucker and River Marmorstein. This debate tonight will have several rounds. In our first round, the questions will be directed at both candidates, and they will receive the same question, have the opportunity to answer, respond to one another, etc. The second round deals with questions that are targeted towards specific candidates. Then we get to the fun part, which is the lightning round. And that, with time permitting, we will take a number of questions from the audience. This time around, we're going to ask that folks who want to ask a question, I'll call on you, and then if you could just come up to the mic, I think that's the easiest way to do it, and we'll go from there. One other programming note before we begin, which is to say, if we could, out of respect for the library, clear out of here as soon as the event concludes so that they may close up the building, that would be extremely helpful, I am told.
We're planning on 8, but
Should be about
so we'll start with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we will begin with Bonnie Tucker.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you.
When we tested it, it didn't feedback, so.
No worries. Okay, can you hear me? Oh. Okay, yeah, all right, good, thank you. Well, thank you and welcome. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate your interest in this role. I'd like to start out by saying some of you may have gotten to know me through my work on the Affordable Housing Committee for this town. I started out as a member, then I became a co-chair, and now I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. And I want to highlight a number of things that we've accomplished in this town with this committee. That I think highlight a number of things that I think reveal who I am. We started out by listening, and I think listening is very, very important. We spent time with employers to try to understand what they are struggling with and what is important to them. We listened to stakeholders of many, many different types to really guide our approach. And what we learned was the employers were really struggling. At the point that we did this work, they had over collectively 200 plus vacant positions that were vacant because people could not find affordable housing. And so we endeavored to think about how we could help in that effort. And right around that time, Catholic Charities was starting to put together a proposal for the Rose Farm residents, and we spent a lot of time bringing people together, employers, stakeholders of many kinds, to really think about what this could mean for our town and how important this could be for people with many different levels of income. And we were very successful in advocating for this project. It is underway. It will be, the first phase will be completed this winter, and lots of people are very interested in having the opportunity to live there and live in this town. We also knew that it was important to be able to engage with the community about affordable housing and workforce housing because everyone has a different view on it. And we thought about what could we do to really be effective in communicating about this challenge. And so we thought, well, maybe we should go to the young people of our town and see if they could think of a creative way to do this. And so we collaborated with the Conval students to put together a play and a video that explored the challenges of how to think about affordable housing and workforce housing, and what might that be, and what fears might we have, and what does that mean, and why might it be helpful. And we got a grant from New Hampshire Housing, we created a video, we premiered it at the community theater. We had a great panel. That's it?
That's
2
fine.
minutes?
That was 2.5. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to close by saying what's important to me is listening, taking action, making impact. Action speaks louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you. River, your opening statement.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. It's quite an honor to be sitting at the table in a town that I love so much, surrounded by friends and neighbors. I know many of you in the room, but there's also some faces I haven't met, so I'll start by just sharing a little bit about me. I've lived in Peterborough my entire life. I grew up, I went through the Peterborough schools. Eventually, I met Dakota, who I get to call my wonderful wife for the last month and a half now. So we live in town with our 2 dogs, and we love this town. We want to stay here. We want to be a part of this community. We really want to buy in and stay here. And what really drove me to run is the fact that I've seen so many people, from people I went to school with, people that grew up here, seniors that have lived here, that have left town because, I agree with Bonnie, it's just simply not affordable. My house that I own, the taxes have gone up 50% in the last 4 years. Inflation 17% in that same time frame, for reference. So I thought, what's the best way to really, give back to the town, as I've done in other ways and roles, and I thought that was running for this position. I've been a first responder for the last many years. I own a small business that's actually building affordable housing, single-family homes for people, and that's kind of what I like to do, is, serve the community, and this is a civic duty for me. I really want to give back to the town. So here's what I want to do, is find ways to reduce the costs without impacting the high quality and level of services that we have in town through a number of ways, and I'm sure they're going to ask me questions about. I want to find ways to get more people involved, specifically young people in town, because this is the future of our town. We want to stay here, and we have to live with the consequences of the decisions we make today for the next 50, 75, 100 years. And the last thing I want to do is provide a fresh and unique perspective, given my background on all sides of the table, as a municipal employee, as the president of a nonprofit, as a small business owner, as a taxpayer.
Sorry, we are at time.
Oh, all right. Well,
We went over for you as well. But thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
We will now begin our first round. As I mentioned, the questions in this round are directed at both candidates, and both of you will have the opportunity to answer in turn. Now, if at any point one of you wishes to respond directly to something that your opponent has said, please raise your paddle, and 30-second responses will be granted at that time. In addition, if either of us wishes to ask a follow-up, the same rules will apply. Answers to the first 2 questions will have a limit of 90 seconds.
So when asked the greatest challenge facing Peterborough, the most common answer in nearly any setting, which both of you have already alluded to, is some variation on the theme of affordability. When we asked you directly, both of you said that in writing, and you've said that in your opening statements as well. So when it comes to affordability, and we mean that as an issue that's not just limited to housing, but can include housing, what specifically can and should the select board do to address that? And we'll start with River.
So the select board is vested with very broad authority in very limited areas. And one of those areas is they are the executive branch for the town, and the voters are the legislative branch. So the select board carries out the budget that the voters vote in to be. So I think the area the select board has is in enforcing and setting the policies on purchasing and carrying out town functions. And that's what I've said is reducing the costs without impacting our level or quality of services that we offer in town. So what does that look like? It might be finding new vendors that still are high quality, that meet the needs that we need. So I think that the biggest challenge for affordability that the select board has direct control over is the municipal portion of the tax rate. And that's something that they kind of directly have a say in and control. And my mortgage has gone up hundreds of dollars a month in the last few years because of the taxes. And that's where I think a lot of people are really feeling the pressure and getting priced out.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Yeah, thank you. No, I agree with what you're saying, River, and I would say that we all are feeling the pinch in terms of taxes and taxes going up. And I want to acknowledge that as an important issue. What I would say is that, that just so we're all baseline on this, the taxes are made up of many different elements. The town budget is 37% of your taxes. So 57% is education, is coming from the Conval school district, and then there's the county and the state. So there's 30-ish% that we can do something with, and we should be very, very careful with that budget. I have been an executive and general manager of a very large biotech company for over 20 years, and I have experience managing budgets from the size of 20 million to hundreds of millions of dollars. And what I have found to be the most effective way of making sure we're making very good and efficient use of our budget is going line by line. And the reason why that's important is because every line is different, and every line represents a story about the work that is being done, what people are expecting, and are we doing it in the most efficient way. And it takes more than 3 eyes, 4 eyes, 5 eyes. It takes many eyes looking at this budget line by line. And that's why it is so important that in January, when the select board meets with the budget committee and the town administration, we take every line seriously and we work together to ask the hard questions and to understand what each line represents. And I invite all of you to participate in that.
Thank you. Besides housing and affordability, what is the greatest challenge facing Peterborough today, and how should the select board address it? We'll start back with Bonnie. 90 seconds.
Great. Thank you. So back to listening. So there's lots of ways to listen. There's public meetings, there's community conversations, but let's not forget the master plan. The master plan is put together taking into consideration the town's residents and their views on what's important. And it is putting that together is a big effort. A lot of people work on it and are thoughtful in synthesizing what the residents want. So to me, the master plan is the roadmap of how to meet the residents' needs and desires. So when I look at the master plan and the visions in the master plan, many things are being done. We're working on housing. We're focusing on energy and climate. But what are we doing with transportation and infrastructure? And do we have people working on that? I'm personally concerned about the kids that are running across the street on 202 from the middle school and from the high school. And do we have a group that's working on that? I don't think we do. I'd love to see a task force that we could put up to focus on safety for our children. Another one of the visions that we have in the master plan is, and River, you mentioned it, retaining young people and families. What are we doing to support that? Do we know all the issues that are at play to retain young families? Who's working on that? I'd love to see a task force on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. River.
So aside from affordability, I have really 2 things that come to mind. One is how do we get more people involved in things like these? And it's great that there's so many people in the audience here today, but I've been going to many of the budget meetings for the majority of the year, and there were some select board meetings and budget committee meetings that I was the only one in the audience. How do we get more people involved to share their voice? And that's one of the big challenges, is that we need people to come and actually speak and share what they think is important with, and how do we get, from a select board point of view, get more buy-in from people and get them to come and speak their mind. The second, and Bonnie touched on it, and this goes back to my background as a first responder, is safety. My wife and I like to walk our dogs, and people fly on the roads. They're not paying attention, they're distracted. I personally think that we should be looking at, even reducing the speed limit town-wide to 30 miles an hour as a default, and getting really enforcing, speeding, distracted driving, those kind of things. And that comes back to retaining and recruiting town employees, the first responders that help work in these communities. And there's a critical shortage that I've seen in my work, and it's not going to get any better. It's not just something you can throw more money at. It's a lot to do with culture, and there's a lot more nuance behind it.
Great, thank you. Our next 3 questions will have a limit of 60 seconds each for responses. As a member of the select board, would it be your job to lead the town by advocating for what you believe to be right and best for the town? Or is it your job to follow, executing what's required by statute and or public demand? And we'll start with River, 60 seconds.
So I mentioned it in my opening argument that the select board is really the executive branch of our town government. They execute the will of the people and the voters. So I truly believe that the select board is not necessarily a policy-making board, but more of think of them as co-mayors, so to speak. Really, it's taking what the voters decide and executing that in a smart and thoughtful, strategic manner. So I don't think that it's necessarily what I believe or what the other 2 members of the select board believe. It's what the voters believe, and you're voting for one of us based on how you think that we will execute the vision that the town collectively has.
I love the question, thank you. So the question, as I hear it, is reactive versus proactive. So to me, the role of the select board is both. So people will come to the select board with needs, questions, desires, hopes, and we should take care to listen carefully to those and be thoughtful about how to respond and what we can do to help. But I also think we should be proactive and think about what collectively have the residents told us is important. And I go back to the master plan, and I think we should also, as a select board, think about proactively, is everything being addressed that we think should be addressed based on what residents want? And I think there should be a proactive element, and we should set up task forces where we feel we need to fill gaps or address important questions, and we should bring people together to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Each of you has stated explicitly, both in writing to us, and we have now talked about it several times already here this evening, but the idea of listening to the residents of the town. And without question, you will hear your share of complaints, concerns, requests, rants, and demands as a member of the select board. In the course of this listening, how will you be able to tell if what you are hearing is something that is broadly shared throughout the entire town versus something that is being merely the most loudly shouted by what is ultimately a smaller number of people? And we'll start with Bonnie, 60 seconds.
That's a great question. I love the question about listening. I think it's interesting because a lot of people have told me they're excited that I'm running, and I always ask them, well, why? Why are you excited that I'm running? What do you like about me? Why is it important that you think I be in this role? And usually the first thing out of their mouth is how well I listen. Listen thoughtfully, respectfully, and to actually ask the hard questions about what you're representing, and is it you, and do you have a broader understanding of what others are feeling, or do we need to have a community conversation where we hear more broadly how people are feeling about it. And it depends on how big the issue or small the issue is. But there are ways. I love community conversations. I think it's a beautiful way for our town to come together and get a better and larger sense for how people are feeling about an issue. So I think listening is one of the most important things we can do as a select board member. Thank you.
Thank you. River.
So I think this comes back to how we get people to show up to these conversations. We can have community conversations every night of the week, but if it's the same 10 people that show up, it doesn't do us much good. So we have to get more people involved and get more new and diverse voices to come to the table in the first place in order to suss out whether it's a small minority or the greater majority of people that share these views. And that's what I think is important. I think when talking individually, it's an economy of scale. If you talk to 100 people and you only hear something once, you know it's a loud complainer. If you hear it 99 times, then you know that it's a real serious issue. And that's how I evaluate it based on my experience.
Thank you. And Bonnie requested a response.
I would like to ask River, how are you going to get people to come out?
Well, I never claimed to have all the answers. And that's the tough thing. And that's why it's important that I think we need to target more people. I think we need to look at how other communities do things as well. I can tell you that when it comes to the ballot session, Barnstead did a great thing, and I was talking with Linda about it, where they let the kids vote. And it boosted their voter turnout by like 10%. So doing things like that get more people to come vote, that get more people to come and get involved, I don't know what all the answers are. But I know that we need to do something, and I think we all agree that we need to do something. And I think that the problem is, and I've seen it, I've been the sole person in the audience at some of these select board meetings and the budget hearings. We need to get more people that care about what's going on in town. And I wish there was a single answer that we could just say, this is the answer, it makes it all easy, but there isn't. It's going to take a lot of hard work and really just targeting new people and getting them involved and telling people what's going on.
Thank you. In your own words, how would you define the character of the town of Peterborough? And we'll start with River.
Peterborough has a very rich history, culture, high levels of civic pride. I absolutely love this town and love everything that it stands for. We have so many initiatives and we're leaders in so many different areas, whether it's conservation, clean energy, all of these things. I think Peterborough is truly a leader across the board in our services, in our culture, in our plan, everything we do. And that's how I would really characterize Peterborough, is a forward-thinking leader as a town.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Thank you. Yes, I've really been interested in how to characterize this town and how people think about this town. I read every page. It's a long document of the master plan. And the themes that come out over and over in that document, and I invite you to read it because it's so rich, is that what people say over and over is that we love the natural resources that are on the perimeter of our town, and we love the center of town, which brings people together in community, in cultural, historical, musical, artistic, and other ways of coming together and really creating vibrancy together. So to me, it's this vibrancy of the arts. It has a historical element to the arts and the culture, and I think that's very, very special.
Thank you very much. For our next round, we have questions specifically tailored for each of you. And so you'll each have 60 seconds to answer these questions. And again, if your opponent wishes, indicate with the paddle, and then they'll get a 30-second response. So our first question is for Bonnie. Bonnie, you've expressed a desire to foster an environment on the select board that's conducive to collaborative problem solving. What does that mean to you, and how will you foster that environment?
Thank you. Yes, I do believe that. I think that problems are solved through collaboration and bringing people together. And it depends on the problem, and it depends on what we're trying to solve. But there's lots of ways that we can do that through committees especially, or bringing committees in with us. Depends on what we're trying to solve. But we, through our Affordable Housing Committee, we've brought many, many different entities together: employers, social service agencies, residents, people who are living in affordable housing. And we were able to make that impact because we brought everybody together. So I think there's many ways to do that, and it depends on the situation and how we as a board decide we can most effectively do it. I want to really tip my hat to the select board when the immigration question came to them, and they thought some of the best things that could be done is to have a community conversation about that, and brought people together to really engage. I thought it was a very effective, beautiful session where people learned how they could take action, how they could learn more, how they could support.
Sorry, we're over time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is for River. River, you have mentioned your experience as a first responder. How specifically will that inform and influence your tenure on the select board? 60 seconds.
Well, I deal with a lot of people when they're having their worst days and nightmares are happening, and the town has been in kind of a precarious position financially, and people are going to come and approach you too when they have issues. And as going back to the question about how are you going to suss out whether someone is just complaining or has a legitimate broader concern, that's something I deal with every day as a police officer and as an EMT, is when people come to you and have these issues. And those skills of working with people, solving problems, dealing with emergencies, making these decisions in a crisis are really what that experience is going to bring to the board. Not only that, but the fire, police, and ambulance are three of the biggest cost centers in town. And knowing how those operate, the ins and outs, having been on these calls, having gone to people's houses in the middle of the night, in our community and in surrounding communities, is really a background that I think is something that hasn't been represented on the board in quite a while, and something that will be valuable.
Thank you. This next question is also for River. River, how would you, as a member of the select board, balance the interests of lifelong or even multi-generational Peterborough residents with those of newcomers when those interests may conflict?
Well, I think that there needs to be, with every decision, a evaluation that's objective. And we can't certainly discount someone because they just moved here. We can't discount someone because they've been here forever and that's the way things have always been. But there's a good mix of our tradition and forward thinking. And we don't want to just change things for the sake of, because that's how it is somewhere else. We don't want to turn Peterborough into a community that it isn't. But we also don't want to keep doing things the way that they've always been simply because that's how it's always been done. So I think that really, as decisions come to the board, you have to evaluate them on their merits of every single decision and decide whether or not, hey, this is going to change the character and the culture of Peterborough and the people who have lived here forever, and the reason why people want to move here, or is this a great idea and we want to move it forward because it's going to make things better and add value to what we already have. And that's the way that I'm going to approach these decisions.
Thank you. The final question in this round goes to Bonnie. Bonnie, we often hear from advocates for affordable housing that with greater housing inventory, costs and prices will begin to come down. Supply and demand. As a strong advocate for affordable housing, what do you say to residents who are counting on their homes retaining their high value, and indeed continuing to rise, who are counting on those gains for, say, retirement, and those who perhaps moved to Peterborough because it's an expensive and rural place to live?
Thank you. It's a really interesting question. So to me, affordable housing is really addressing a very specific need in our community for people who really can't afford it. And that housing is set under very specific guidelines that are set by HUD and other entities, and it is not in any way opening wide open to the market so that it's now in this sort of supply and demand situation. So it's a very specific segment of the market. I don't think you can really compare it. And what I think is important is that the community have a full range of options for people so that everyone, no matter what your income is, you can live here if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, for the final round, we're going to open up our remaining time to audience questions. When you come up to the mic, please specify whether your question is for a specific candidate or for both of the candidates, and then we'll give them 30 or 60 seconds to answer, and then 30 seconds if you would like a response.
Is there any?
If you could come up to the...
Oh, okay. I can't talk loud enough? All right. Thank you. I'm Ron Drogi, and I live on Pine Street. And again, as was mentioned before, the tax rate is going up ridiculously. But I'm also hearing that, you know, we have a high level of unemployment, and we have jobs that need to be filled. Also on Pine Street, for years, we've had one half, the south half of Pine Street itself, just getting more and more potholes, and when they do get fixed, okay, they get slopped over. And so they're really not fixed, so it's a mess. But I guess my real question is, what in the world, do we have any ideas about what to do about our rising tax rates? Because we are retired, we don't have any other income except our retirement and what very modest investments we have, and we just find that the budget that we made out with our investment counselor a number of years ago is just like out the window. It's like that's not our budget anymore. It's got to be twice that much, which means whatever we have in savings or investments is going to go faster and faster. So no, I'm not going to have enough money to live to 90. Okay, now I might be lucky if I have enough money to live till I'm 85. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, so what can we actually do to provide really affordable housing so people who can't earn a lot of money or people who live in Boston can't come up here and buy $1 million houses for the summer? You know, how do we actually make it possible for people on a moderate income to come to Peterborough to fill jobs, and if those jobs get filled, then maybe our tax rates will go down? Because I appreciate what I'm hearing here today, but so far I don't hear anything specific to what my concerns are. Thank you.
Thank you. And we can start back with Bonnie.
Great, thank you. So just to be a little more specific, the Bose Farm residence, which phase 1 will be completed this winter, will bring in total 96 affordable housing units to this town, which is really, really impactful. And there's already a very long list of people who are signing up who want to live there. So we already have in motion a very significant development to support that affordable housing. We just completed a very exciting project in collaboration with Keene State College to develop architectural concepts for additional affordable housing of all types. And I invite you, all the concepts are up in the townhouse right now, and we'll be sharing them tomorrow, First Friday. Come to the townhouse, we'll be on the patio, in front to show you the additional concepts for affordable housing. We know that already one of them is developers already interested in implementing. So there is a lot in motion here to really support affordable housing needs in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. River.
So I'm going to address this more from the tax perspective because my bill has gone up close to $400 a month, and the difference between a $2,000 monthly payment and $2,400 monthly payment is big when you're struggling. So I think the big thing we can do is look at reducing our costs, and that can be through competitive purchasing, looking at the capital lifespan of all these different things. Our purchasing policy in town hasn't been updated since 2008, which the landscape of the economy and purchasing in general has changed very much in almost the last 2 decades. So I think really what we need to do is, and I'm very fortunate to live in a single family home that is what the middle class dream is, and the taxes are just killing me like it sounds like they are for you too. So I think we really need to look at that strategically to stabilize the tax commitment, so the total tax bill that you get for the next few years, let people catch up to where we are right now as a town and really stop this. We're looking at probably another close to 20% increase in the next bill. So we really just need to make sure that we're finding ways to reduce our costs without impacting what we have for services. And I know I'm limited in time, so I hope I addressed all your concerns.
Thank you. Bonnie, you wish to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So you had a multi-fold question, and I answered the affordable housing piece of it. I appreciate the other piece being taxes, and I very much appreciate that concern. I do think that every element of our budget needs to be looked at as an element, every line, to really scrutinize. We do have in the town a whole policy around RFPs and multiple bids, and there's a lot of work that's done to make sure we get the best value for the dollar. But we do need to scrutinize every line of the budget, and I'm happy to do that as part of the select board in partnership with the budget committee and any of you who would like to participate in it, to really ask the tough questions and get the best impact for our dollar and do what we can to help you with your tax burden.
Thank you. Ivy?
One of the things, of course, that's driving the rise of taxes in the towns is the constant downshifting from the state. What's your thought about how we address that problem? The fact that the state has eliminated a lot of tax revenue and has subsequently eliminated a lot of tax disbursement to the towns. How do we deal with that?
Thank you. We'll start with River.
So the meals and rentals and some of the other tax revenue that comes to the town has actually increased over the last few years. As far as some of the stuff that comes from the state, it's really a matter for the legislature, and I think working with them and having those partnerships is what's going to be important. I think that there's definitely revenue sources that could be brought about from the state, but that's not what I'm running for, and I think that that's, we've got 2 people in the back of the room that are working on that problem right now. So I think that that's really a problem for the legislature to decide, but I think in the meantime, we can't say, well, it's all the state. We still have this issue that we're in. We have $37 million in bonds that are coming due in the next 20 years. We can't just say, we need more revenue from the state. We have to address the issues that we have now with what we're getting and what's happening, regardless of what the legislature does.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Yeah. Thank you, Reverend. Yes, it's a circle of influence question. So certainly at the town, as River says, we have approximately 30% of your tax bill that we can work very, very hard to control and do what we can to reduce your taxes. I encourage you to engage in the other elements. Over 50% is coming from the Conval School District, and there are a number of initiatives that I'm aware of that are trying to rectify the state spending for the schools. So there's a lot that's going on, and I look forward to collaborating with our Conval representatives to see if there's anything we can support in that realm, and I invite you to engage on this important topic as well.
Thank you. And River, you'd like to respond?
Yeah, I just want to address the proportion of the tax rate. I will agree that all day that Conval does represent the biggest portion, but compared to other communities in the state, Peterborough's municipal portion is higher than a lot of other communities. And Peterborough also has a much higher operating budget and municipal tax commitment than other communities of our size. Plymouth is a pretty good direct comparison, and their operating budget is like just about half of ours. So I think we really need to look across the board. We can say that, oh, it's education, oh, it's, you know, something else. But I think that we lose the idea, yes, it's 37%, but it's still higher than a lot of other communities, and it's still a bigger impact on what we have in Peterborough.
Thank you. All right, next.
I hope it's a tough one, Randy.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that communication and collaboration are very important aspects of this job, and I think also that a willingness to learn is a very important, key component. I know that learning from the taxpayers is very important, and I think that's both been mentioned tonight. Learning from your colleagues and the other leaders in this town is also very important. I like that both of you have mentioned listening and not having all the answers. Those are great indicators of willingness to learn. Something I respect about our current select board is that they are in constant communication with and collaboration with the leaders to learn what they are doing. The town employees are doing these jobs full time, and I think that they're great resources. And I love that our current select board is in constant communication with them. So in anticipation of this role, have either of you reached out to our town administrator and or current select board, had meetings with them? And if so, what have you learned from those?
We'll start with Bonnie.
Thank you. I love that question. I really, it's been such a pleasure working with members of the town staff. I personally have spent the most time with the planning department, and we have done a lot of collaborative work together, Danica Malone and Tricia, as well as others in the department. Just this last project we did was a true collaboration. We call it Envision Town Student Challenge for Affordable Housing. We were working every week together to put this together, to collaborate with Keene State, to engage the students, to make sure they really understood the zoning and the various requirements of each property, to support the students in their presentations that happened this week. I just love when I have meetings with town staff to work to solve problems for this town. I spent time with Nicole to make sure I understand the budget process. I've looked at every line of the current budget with her. And so I think it's really important that the select board members engage with the town staff to make sure that there's collaboration and engagement to reach the most impactful outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. River.
So yes, I've had breakfast or lunch with many different chairs of committees or Bill Taylor. I extended the invitation but had scheduling issues with the two representatives. I've reached out to all of the select board members, but I obviously work at a little bit of a weird schedule, and sometimes scheduling is pretty tough. But I've tried to reach out and have, on me of course, breakfast or lunch with all of the people that have a stake and to learn from them and see what we're doing and what's going on, what are we doing. I've also, ridden along with the Peterborough Police Department. I would say I've ridden along with the fire department, but I'm usually driving the truck. So I can't say I've done that. But I think that that's really, to address your question, Mandy, yes. I've been spending a lot of time. Our town employees are our biggest asset, and I support the work that they're doing every day. And I don't say that just because I'm one of them.
Thank you.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. I just wrote it. River has mentioned his extensive experience in being a first responder and how that's important, and how that important experience will inform him in this role. So, Bonnie, how will you support first responders, and how much will you consider the perspectives of first responders if you're elected to this role?
What I would say is that I respect all town employees, no matter what their role is, including first responders. Everybody plays a critical role to meet the needs and to provide services for this town. So I wouldn't single out any particular role. Every role is critical and important, and we need to respect all of them, including first responders.
Thank you.
Eisen, live on Road, and both my daughters went to Conval, and now they're living in New York State. And my question is, towns develop and places develop based on industry, and one of the industries, one of the kind of work that we have a wonderful library, and so there's a lot of art, writing, and things people can do on the internet with Wi-Fi now that we have. So I see that as a way of, bringing in new industry, which would be a source of money. And one of I grew up in Manhattan, where everyone lived in apartments and not single-family homes, unless you were very, very rich. And transportation was so easy in New York. Buses, you could walk almost anywhere, and buses and subways. So what do you have to foist or foster new industries in town? To both.
Thank you. We'll start with River.
So when we look at the town, we actually have a lot of really interesting things going on with innovation and industry. We've got the arts and all that, but we also have a lot of people designing like energy efficient heat pumps. We have the work going on at ball bearing and microspecs. We also have a lot of industry as well. And I think that we've done a really good job being a forward leader and promoting that stuff to come here and bringing those people here. We have to retain them here. And I think that really it comes back to how do we get people here? And I think like a lot of the work that Bonnie's been doing has been great actually in getting these architecture students to do this work. And I think just supporting these jobs at ball bearing, supporting this innovation, because when people are designing new patents here in town, there's a lot of stuff that really is cool coming out of town, out of Peterborough. And if we can continue to support that, I don't know exactly how, like I said. Don't have all the answers, but I think that kind of stuff will really help us stay the unique community that we are.
Thank you. Bonnie.
Yeah, thank you, River. Yeah, I just want to build on what you said. There is a diverse set of employers in this town. They are struggling, even the ones we have, because it's very hard for them to recruit And it's very hard for them to retain because they cannot find housing and they cannot find affordable housing. And as we were talking to employers, one of the things that we learned, not only did they have this collective number of open positions, 200 plus, but they talked about one large employer in town talked about hiring 150 people, and they came in, they had some way of having temporary housing, they got trained, and then this employer was left with 15 at the end of the year because they could not find housing. He's lost $750,000 training these new employees. So a really critical piece. And another employer echoed the same thing, started with 50 new employees at the end of the year, ended up with 5. So affordable housing is a critical need in this town. I think we're making good progress. We need to combat it. I always think fondly of some of the roots of this town in terms of its tech and tech publishing. It used to be a big publishing hub, and we do have a lot of virtual capability today. I know there are people sitting in this room who know of people or are related to people who are still doing publishing work. And I think the more we can create a livable town, the more we can bring diverse industry in. I do believe in making sure that Peterborough continues to be an attractive employment hub. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more. Yes, sir, in the back.
All right, long walk, time short. So, River, this one's directed at you. So, as a first responder, how can you guarantee that you're going to be impartial to the budget? Even in your opening statement, you said you would like to hire another police officer. So, how do we know that you're not going to favor your background? Because you've been a first responder forever. So.
Well, that's a quick answer, and I can tell you that I've been a thorn in the fire chief's side because I have been vocal about certain things that I don't think we need to buy. And that's where my perspective as a first responder comes in, because it's very easy to say, well, it's going to save a life, so we need to buy it right now. And I've actually been in the trucks on the front line at midnight and can confidently tell you on some of this stuff, it's a gimmick and no more. So I think it really comes down to an evaluation on what it is, and I think having the perspective of actually being in the car, on the street, can really help determine, and these are some of our biggest cost centers as a town, is emergency services. And having that experience will actually help to find ways where we can not go with the platinum tier, but come down to the silver, where it's going to still meet all of our needs and then some, but not cost 3 times as much.
Thank you. In conclusion, we'll invite both of the candidates to make 60-second closing remarks, and we will start with Bonnie.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being in this discussion with you. I really appreciate you all being here and to hear your questions. I often ask people, tell me about your favorite select person that you ever have seen in action. What does that person do? Why do you like them? And the answer is they don't come with a preconceived notion. They're a tremendous listener, and they really seek to understand, and as a result of that, find the best solution. That is what I do, and that is what I would commit to do for you if I become your select board. Thank you.
Thank you. River.
So I'll end with a little bit of a story. When my parents were looking at a community to buy before I was born, they landed on Peterborough because of all the reasons why Peterborough was so great. And I was talking to my mom, and she said, we picked Peterborough, and we bought this house because we wanted a place where we could buy into the community and really be a part of the town, and a part of the culture, and a part of everything great that we have going on. And me and my wife have decided to stay here. I couldn't have said it as good as my mom. That's exactly why I decided to stay here. And it's scary that we're losing so many young people to other communities, to other states, to other areas. And my vision for this town, and the reason why I ran, is to make it so that we can retain people to live their American dream, that they can own a house, they can live affordably, they can live in the town that they grew up in, they can be a part of the community, they can be involved. And that's why I decided to run. It's truly an honor to be part of the civic process and to be a part of our town's democracy, and I really hope that I can earn your votes, and if I can't, I still hope that we can have conversations that are civil, because we all have more in common than we don't, and I'll find something in common with anyone in this room to work on, whether you're as far to the left or as far to the right. We'll find something together in common, and I will dedicate the rest of my life in Peterborough towards making that happen with any of you. And that's my promise to everyone in this town.
Thank you. Thus concludes the 5th Peterborough Parley. I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you to the Peterborough Town Library, to Corinne Chronopoulos, and all of the staff. And of course, thank you to our candidates, Bonnie and River. And remember, it is very nice outside, so we can all take our conversations out there without discomfort.
Extreme